Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Luthier's Lair, and today we're gonna be looking into the world of CNC machining. Okay, so what is it? Well, before we get into what it is, we're going to explain how I kind of, felt that I needed to do this. As the gas-based brand is growing, I've found the need to cut down build times and turnover times, especially on things that require like intricate carves or intricate motifs, stuff like that. That's hard to do by hand, and it's very time consuming and it's very labour intensive. So I thought I would invest in this setup here. Yes, for carvings and inlays and stuff like that. This is fantastic. And I'm going to give you a rundown of what this equipment actually is and what it does. And be right back with the rundown. Okay, here's the equipment rundown. Now, a lot of this stuff I already had in on hand. Being a bit of a computer geek, I've always been into buying little mini boards and Arduinos and Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. But this is the thing I actually bought. This is the Genmitsu 3018 Pro CNC router. And like all CNC routers, or most anyway, common ones, it accepts standard G-code. G-code is a command structure that sends commands to the onboard computer here. It's a controller basically. It's a microcontroller based on Arduino, which you guys in the know will know about that. What it is just a microcontroller, and I used to build robots quite often. Maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I used to build pathfinding robots and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. But it was just a hobby. But now it has become functional because my knowledge of the Arduino has allowed me to enhance this board that came with this piece of equipment. I'll probably give you a link to this piece of equipment as well. It's pretty sturdy. I'm really impressed with it. But that's the actual CNC machine itself. As you can see, it has a spindle. The spindle's just like a router with a bit in it for carving or cutting or whatever you want to do with it. It has a X-axis here, a Y-axis, which is the table, and a Z-axis or Z-axis, depending on what side of the Atlantic you're on, that moves the spindle up and down. So it has all 6 degrees of freedom there. Now, the actual thing that controls it, it does come with a little handheld offline controller, but I thought I would put one of the things I had on hand to good use, and that's that little thing there. Ooh, what's that? What's that, Gary? Yes, well, that's a Raspberry Pi 4B, which I bought about maybe a year ago or something. A very powerful little computer in a box. Well, it's actually not in a box. You get the box separately. So I did buy the case for it. But as you can see, it's the BAT Raspberry Pi 4B. I always label things with BAT in a kind of homage to the old Batman series, Bat computer and stuff like that, So that's cool. I had this wireless keyboard kicking around, so I've got that attached to the RPI here, and I also had this 19-inch touchscreen monitor kicking around. You've probably seen it in some of my videos. I used to use it a lot, and then I kind of relegated it for use with the laptop. But as you can see now, it is for use with my CNC machine. So this all controls this, and this is running on Debian. Actually, it's Raspbian Buster is the name of the operating system, but it's a flavour of Linux. And for those of you guys who are into Linux and Unix style operating systems, it's a very straightforward thing to use. Very straightforward. For those who are not in the know of this type of thing, then it's a learning curve. It definitely is. If you used to point and click, forget it. But since I've been a professional programmer for 40 years, it's pretty much old hat to me. So that's it right there. And of course, you see the Raspberry Pi 4B supports 4K actually. It supports 4K HDMI. It has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core 64-bit ARM7 processor, I think. It's based on the RISC instruction set, the reduced instruction set CPU specification. It's a RISC CPU, and let's just get on with it, shall we? Or shall we? Do you want me to show you some Linux command line commands and stuff? No? Alright, maybe not. Okay, so next we're going to load something up into a package I have here, because in Linux you call them packages, not executables. Well, they are executables, but it's a package. And this particular piece of software is called Candle, and it actually came with the CNC machine. It was a Windows version, and I wanted to use my Raspberry Pi because it's just lying around, I wanted to use it to do something a little bit different. So what's happening here is this is all linked up via USB to the Raspberry Pi right here, and what I can do is use Candle here, which is just an application. I'll show you the desktop. Oops, I just right clicked on that. Here's my desktop in Linux, sorry, Raspbian, and we can load in any G-code file into this, and if you want, for my I'm going to be starting a Patreon page really soon, and any patrons who are out there can have my sample G-code files, no problem, and I'll probably make a video on how to create G-code. So out we go. I always get the zoom wrong on this. What a dick. Anyway, so there we go. Let's see what we can do with this. Okay? So here we are again, and let me just load a file I made earlier, and of course if you are interested, I'm going to be uploading these things to and sharing these things with my patrons when I launch my Patreon page, which will be about in the next month, I would think. But I'm just going to open a file I used recently. Wonder who that is. And now, people, if you watch me on YouTube or Facebook, you'll maybe get a little idea of what this is going to be and who this is going to be for. Okay? But I'm going to move across the shot now to get to the other side. Okay? Fantastic. Now, great machine this. Let's focus down here a little bit. I'll actually show you a wide angle. Now I can jog to the left or right using this software. See that jogging there? goes that way. Let's start about there. Now, I'm going to find a point on here. Normally what I would do here is I would draw on the wood a rectangle of the exact dimensions of the carve that I'm going to make, and then I'd pick my 0 point and then I would let the machine go. But we'll just, for point of demonstration here, I'm going to show you a couple of things. Okay, and here's a nice tip that I learned. In this, in the spindle here, we have a very sharp 15-degree angled 5mm shank cutting bit that will make very narrow lines. Okay, because what I ultimately want to do is I'm going to be making an engraving in a fingerboard with an LED panel behind it so you can see the letters through it. And I'll show you all the manufacturing processes that will go into that. I'm in the planning stage right now. I think I've got it down. I've ran a few experiments and they should be okay. Anyway, so we have our stuff up here. Okay, now the next part is to get and this is the G code that tells the machine how to move and everything. The next part is to get the spindle down nearly touching, or actually touching, the work surface here. So let me change the steps on this, and let's put this down. That's pretty close. I'm going to go to 1mm steps now. And I'm going to use this piece of very thin material there, just to gauge. Now you can buy something called a Z probe, and the Z probe actually detects when it's hitting the surface. But just for demonstration right now, and I'll make my own Z probe, thank you very much. Oh, I need to move up a little bit because that pierced that. Yeah, there we go. Now if I can, no, I can't move that yet. See, I'm jogging the Z-axis up now, and I still can't move now. I can go down back by 0.1 again. Yeah, another 0.1. That's us on the work surface. Now, what I do now, if I kind of zoom in to the screen here, what I'm going to do now is, can you guys see that okay? I hope you can. Is I'm going to zero everything, because see there, here we have our home point on the cut. So I'm going to zero the X and Y and zero the Z. Now it knows where it is, and I'm going to fire up. I don't have the G code to fire up the spindle, but I know that this will ramp up the spindle for me. So I'm going to hit that. Okay. Now the spindle's running, and then I'm going to hit this button, send. I can't touch the screen because it'll do it. And that will send the commands to the router, the CNC router, and it will cut this lovely little name. I'm going to zoom in there. Hopefully that's in focus for you. And let's hit send and go. As you can see, I can still talk normally over the top of this. It's not loud at all. I've got this fairly fastened button down to the bench. I just knocked up this little stand. You know, that everything's in there, little enclosure. As you can see, it's engraving the G code that I sent to it. The trick is, of course, getting the right G code in there. I don't have my compressor on or my air gun on, so I'm going to have to do that to get rid of the dust. So so you can see the actual engraving. What I usually do with these bits is I make 2 passes to make it a bit cleaner, you know. It doesn't take long at all. The depth of this cut is 2.5 millimeters. So when I route out the back side of that piece and put an LED panel in it, you will see through. And you'll see the letters illuminated. There you go. That's the first pass. Rough pass. I should actually get better bits, I think, for this. But I'm just doing trials right now. I'm going to run a second pass on this, and then let's see what we come up with. And here we have a result. Actually, these are just 1 passes. This one I bumped the machine by mistake. It was really stupid of me. I won't do that again. This one is oak, and this one is bird's eye maple. Scrap pieces I had. Who has scrap pieces of bird's eye maple? Well, I do, and I keep them for such events. Now, what I'm thinking is I need to get a better bit. It's kind of funky there, and I actually did test all the axes on the device, and they're all true. So there's some chatter coming from somewhere. I don't know where, but I'll find it, and I'm getting pretty good results there. Here's an earlier one I did a while ago. I went a bit too deep on that, right? Ruined the stencil and everything. And there's another one I ruined. So it's a learning curve, but it's awesome fun. It really is. And really getting the G-code file is the key to being successful at this. I'm really happy with this setup. This is not expensive, comparatively speaking. You just need to maintain the machine all the time. Keep it maintained. Keep it lubed. Use a dry lubrication, one that doesn't gather dust and stuff like that. And obviously cover your machine when you're not using it if it's in the same workshop as you do all your other stuff. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I guess that'll be all for now. But if you want to know more, well, I'll be making more videos on CNC, and you can follow my learning curve with me if you wish. But that will be probably consigned to my Patreon subscribers. On YouTube I will put the basics up, and if you feel so inclined to support me in my efforts to make some of the finest bass guitars in the world, then you can join my Patreon. I will be happy to have you, and there's lots of rewards to be had there. I have a few goals on coming up on Patreon, where if I get to a certain amount of patrons, I'll be able to give away bass guitars. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you can join me on this adventure. There's always something that happens, and then you start again, and you get better, and you get better. So I hope you can join me, and that's it for this episode. So as always, stay safe, be good. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.